Guitar Will Travel, presented by Vintage Guitar Magazine, with your host, me, James Patrick Regan, otherwise known as Jimmy from the Deadlies. And today I'm speaking with guitarist, band leader, and record label owner, Ron Pope. In our conversation, Ron tells us about his different touring iterations and his tour routines. Ron talks about his new album, American Man, American Music, and the personnel on the album, and how that differs from his road personnel. Ron talks about how he moved from electric guitar to acoustic, and we discuss gear, vintage guitars, modeling amps, and Carter's guitars in Nashville. Ron describes the benefits of living in Nashville as a musician, and Ron discusses his record label, Brooklyn Basement Records. Ron also talks about teaching himself guitar from listening to Albert King and Steve Cropper records. To find out more about Ron, you can go to his website, ronpope.com. That's RONPOPE.com. Please subscribe, like, comment, share, and most of all, review this podcast. I'd really appreciate it. And please support Vintage Guitar Magazine for all the wonderful things they do for us guitar players, because you know what? They do so many wonderful things for us guitar players. This is my buddy Ron. Hey there, Ron.
Hey, so how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
You know, I didn't die and they paid me, and now I'm home, so.
Good. And when you tour, are you touring solo or are you touring with a band?
I'm touring with a band. I have different ensembles every year. This year, I decided to try a quartet, which I've never done before. So I got 3 other multi-instrumentalists, and so I'll play guitar and sometimes piano and sometimes guitar and harmonica. And there's another guy who plays bass and plays mandolin, and a lady who plays cello is her main instrument, but she plays fiddle on all the kind of up-tempo tunes. And then there's the drummer plays banjo, and everybody sings. So it was fun. So we could kind of do the sort of big Southern rock arrangements, and we could do everything sort of works, all the various facets of what I make. So it was cool. It was definitely I don't know. Even in high school, I don't think I was in a band without another guitar player. And so that was it's really, the way that I play is kind of built around usually like playing with somebody else. And so it was really interesting to be like, I can just take up all this space. There's nobody else here. Like I'm not stepping in on anybody's toes by doing all this.
And did you play a bar 27 miles?
When I did play a bar 27 miles outside of Augusta, in whatever, like 1999 or whatever that story is from. I don't know,
really?
2005 or something, whatever. Yeah. So, yeah.
That's cool, but not this time.
No, we didn't make it this time.
And do you tour? Are you in a bus or are you in a van or what is it?
So usually we're in a bus, but this year, for a number of reasons, we ended up like at the last minute not taking a bus, which like on a tour routed for a bus made this pandemonium. Like we played, like we went from Toronto to Northampton, Mass, but then rather than playing in Boston after that, we went to Philly. And then we went back to Boston and then to New York. So we're just like crisscrossing, places. We did a lot of that kind of like tomfoolery, which, on a bus, it's like you go to sleep, you wake up, you're in Cincinnati.
Sure.
So that was, I'm like sitting in the front, like also my tour manager who was going to drive, she got sick. And a lot of the ride. And so I'm like up front, like, with my captain's hat on, just like driving us like I'm a dad. So it's like I'm on a road trip with my family, only it's like a bunch of, adults who work for me.
Yeah. The new album, are the people that's playing on the new album, are they actually in the band now or is it different people?
Oh, you can't get those motherfuckers to go on tour with me. No, like one of those dudes, one of the guys, let me see, the drummer and the bass player from that album are Robbie Crowell and Kevin Black. Robbie is currently playing keyboards and saxophone in Sturgill's band. Oh wow! And Kevin is playing bass. Seth Taylor is playing a bunch of the guitars. He's in Post Malone's touring band. When he's not on tour with Post, he plays with Sarah Jarosz. I'm trying to make like Sean Robertson is on there. Like he's in Sierra Hull's band. So it's all stone cold killers. Like pretty much everybody is people like people I can barely it's like friends I can't get a cup of coffee with because they're never here. So no, they're and my friend Zach Berkman, who helped me make this record, who's is my best friend and is my most often collaborator. He is in the touring band. He played bass and mandolin, and he played some on the record, and he engineered the record and mixed it.
It sounds great.
So thank you. I appreciate it. He's a sort of a do everything character. And so he had never played bass on the road. He played bass in the studio before, but he had never toured as a bass player. In my band in the past, he's been an auxiliary player. So he's been some keyboard, some guitar, some mandolin, some banjo, that sort of shit. Yeah. And with this tour, the job for that position was, also play bass. And he was like, I mean, fuck it. I guess I'll play bass. I don't know. And so he spent the last year, I guess, really getting, because he always played, but he spent the last year getting really comfortable. And so, and then there's a lot of monsters that have played bass on my records in the last, 20 years. And so it's a grown up task, and he proved to be up for it, but
right
it was a lot of work. So not most of the people from the record are, they're busy.
Yeah.
as is true for almost everybody in Nashville that's good. It's like everybody that that's really, and Caitlin Rates, she played cello on the record, but she ended up on the road playing her cello parts, and then sometimes she's playing Billy Contreras' fiddle parts. Like Billy's in Ricky Skaggs' band. He's a monster.
Yeah.
And so when she told me at some point, she's like, "Oh, I can play a little fiddle." She's like, "I went to fiddle camp as a kid," stuff like that. And then she walked in the studio and she's like, "Billy Contreras is here. I didn't say I could play fiddle like Billy Contreras." So it's but it's a fun group. It's fun to we all had a sort of a meeting. I don't know. We were drinking, and we were at medieval times when we had this meeting. But we were talking about we were almost at the very end of the tour. We had 2 more shows left, and we talked about how we all felt like we were utilized more on this tour than we ever had on any other tour in our lives. And so that was a really interesting experience for each of us. For her, it's, in the old iteration of my band that had 8 people in it, sometimes Caitlin would be singing a harmony and swinging a tambourine. Yeah. But now,
now she's working.
She's got to play her fiddle parts while singing her harmonies. Yeah. And then it's like, I don't know if you've ever seen anybody play both violin and cello in the same evening, but I have not. So I was very impressed.
That's great. How did you gather these people? Yeah. So for the touring band, how do you gather them?
We had Matt Sibilia, who's playing drums with me and banjo. Some of my friends had their drummer called out right before they were about to go to Europe to go on tour, and they knew Matt, and they called Matt and took him. And so I had a cancellation, a person who was going to go on the road with us. We were, 2 weeks from starting rehearsals for a big tour last year. And the person quit or canceled or whatever. Yeah. And I was like, damn, what do I do? So I started asking my friends, and one group of friends, they were like, when we had this exact problem, we called Matt Sibilia, and Matt showed up, and he was great. so I found him by chance, and he learned all the tunes and showed up at rehearsals and knew every song, top to bottom, and was great. So that's how I found him.
Wow.
Zach has been my best friend for it's going on 21 years, and I was in a songwriting circle in college, and he walked in. He was a freshman when I was a senior. And all the first year kids, we had them playing songs to sort of introduce themselves to the circle. And he played it, and everybody's, just turned 18 years old. Everybody's bad. All songs are hard. So he played a song, and it was actually good. I was sitting on the other side of the room. I stood up. I went, you're with me. I was picking teams at kickball or something. Yeah. So he got up and he came and he sat next to me, and he's been, I've been daring him to do crazy shit for a long time. And so he's engineered records of mine. We co-wrote many of my songs together. And he's a, great multi-instrumentalist, and he's always willing to try something. He's a great singer. So that's how I got him. Yeah. And Caitlin Caitlin was roommates. Caitlin and her husband, when they came here, they came to Nashville. They were roommates with my friend Robbie Hecht, who's a great songwriter, and so I know Caitlin and her husband Ben. I know them through Robbie Hecht, and so she came in to play cello on the record, but also has been in the touring band now for a few years. Okay. She's a killer.
Yeah. Yeah. What about putting the band, like, you know, how did you get Seth to play a guitar on the record?
Well, I grew up playing electric guitar. I didn't care about acoustic guitar. I sometimes would use acoustic guitar. I sometimes would use acoustic guitar to write songs, but otherwise I wasn't really very interested in acoustic guitar. And so I could accompany myself and I could, you know, play in the band and stuff, but it wasn't, you know, my main thing. And it wasn't something that I was super stoked to do ever. And at some point we were going to do an acoustic trio tour with me and two other people, and we're all switching, playing acoustic instruments. Sure. And I said, man, I really got to like sit down and start to learn to use this acoustic guitar like as a weapon. You know? And so I'm friends with the upright bass player and songwriter Scott Mulvihill. And so Scott is one of the things he's done is play bluegrass. He played with Ricky Skaggs and played with lots of other people. Wow. And so I said, if you wanted to learn to flat pick, who would you call? And he said, I would call Seth Taylor. He'd be a great teacher, a great person to teach you. And I called Seth and he was like, well, I've never taught anyone anything on guitar, but sure, I'll try. And then he gave me lessons for like 2 years. And so we became good friends. And it's really interesting. Our relationship, it's coincided with him becoming more and more regarded as an electric guitar player and called for all of these electric guitar gigs because he played on the Zach Bryan record, the big Zach Bryan record. And so, you know, he didn't grow up playing electric guitar. And so and that's funny because sometimes you see a picture of him and he's playing electric guitar in a football stadium with Post Malone. And you're like, what in the world? So I love it. So we happen to become friends at this sort of crossroads in our lives where I really wanted to get, you know, excited about acoustic guitar, and he happened to be inexplicably becoming an electric guitar in a town full of electric guitar players. Sure. He's like, I just keep, you know, he's like, I keep walking in these rooms. They keep handing me electric guitars. I love it. And he's a great, in addition to being, you know, such a formidable picker, he's also an incredible dude. And so he comes in for all kinds of stuff for me. Like I wanted to preview the record in town and he was home. So he came, did like, you know, 8 hours worth of rehearsals to play a gig in a bar with me. And, you know, that he's a good pal. So that's a cool part about living in Nashville. It's like, you know, you walk into the grocery store. Like I was doing Chris Eldridge's, his class, like he had not True Fire. What's the other one? Whatever it is, he has one of those guitar classes. And I was doing it when I was learning to flat pick. And so I was walking down the street one day pushing my daughter in a stroller, and Chris was going the other way pushing a stroller. I was like, "Hey man, how are you?" And so we started chit-chatting, and only after a few minutes of me talking to him did I remember, oh my goodness, I don't know this dude. I've never met him before in my life. I just see him every day on my computer. But that's kind of as a musician what Nashville is like. You know, when we were making this record, they were making Lily Winwood's newest record down the hall, and so that, you know, we'd see those people just because we were all in the studio at the same time. Yeah. And so it's very that's a pretty cool part about living here is that the community of musicians is you know, it's super deep, and you know, we all live here. So you know, you can go to D's and you walk in and there's, you know, 7 people who've won Grammys. Like 4 of them are on stage and 3 of them are holding beers, and there's only like 15 people in the whole bar. Sure. And so that's something that's cool about Nashville, I think, is that, you know, there's so many great musicians around, and I am lucky enough to have, you know, I've been here 10 years, and so I've found my way into the community, and I've met all these people that I really admire, and it's exciting. It's exciting to, you know, to bring ideas to these sorts of people, because when you're surrounded by musicians that are making you challenge yourself, you're gonna do better. Like you have to. You have no choice but to do better if you're surrounded by people who play like heroes.
Sure, absolutely. So the record label is yours, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, how early did you start the label?
Well, I hate to say that anything is organic because that's such an overused word, but this is a pretty organic thing. My wife, when we were in the first few years of dating, she worked she had a corporate job. She worked in advertising for a television network or a group of television networks.
Uh-huh.
And so she did that. And every once in a while, something would be messed up. And she'd be like, oh, I'll help you with this. I'll help you with that. I know how to do this. I know how to do that. And so over time, she became my manager because all the other people that had been my manager previous to her they didn't help. They didn't add any value. And so she came on to manage me full time without another job in 2012, at the beginning of the year 2012.
Okay.
And at that point, we were on the road all the time. She was traveling with us. It was crazy. So we did that, and she got in, and we were still in a van. And then she got in a van. God bless her. I'm surprised that she ended up marrying me after that. But we traveled around the country, and then around the world, and did that for a while. And then she was there until we got in a bus. She was there, and then she was like, I got all this other stuff. She's like, at this point, I'd say she's a manager by trade. So she had a bunch of management clients that she's taken on over the years. Uh-huh. So she left to do that, and then it felt really natural to move into the label space because I was writing songs for people and producing records, and a lot of them weren't coming out because people didn't have, they fire their manager, their deal would fall apart or whatever.
Sure.
And so we just took all the things that we knew how to do and put them together. And so over the years, we've done all sorts of stuff. I think of it now sort of as like a multi-purpose, modern music company because, you got to do a little of this and a little of that. It's I think the more versatile a company is, the more likely it is to add value in today's music business. It's pretty hard to just do one thing or only know about one thing and survive. Sure.
And it's a nonprofit. Is that correct?
No, that's not true. It is for profit. I'm trying. I mean, I don't know. Sometimes we're not making a profit, but I'm trying.
Yeah. Steve Ryman and Yvonne, are they on the label?
So Steve is, they have a band called Effie Zilch. Steve
That's the one.
And Evan. Yeah, Steve and Evan have a band called Effie Zilch. And they're signed to a label called Red Tone, and we do a lot of the nuts and bolts work for them because they do a lot of production stuff, and we do a lot of the label-y stuff.
This is how I got messed up.
We do all sorts of things.
Yeah. Okay. I knew they were somehow connected to you, and so
Steve is a killer player. If we're meant to talk about vintage guitars at some point, so for a long time I played really physically heavy guitars. I'm like sort of I'm big for a musician. Like medium size for a regular man, like 6 feet tall, like 200 pounds. Yeah. And, I'm like Otis Redding size. Yeah. And so growing up, once I got to where I could get, nice guitars, got really into all these really physically very heavy guitars. So I had 2 mid-70s Les Pauls.
Sure.
I had a 76 Les Paul Custom, a beautiful black, gorgeous, incredible sounding guitar, and a gold top that was a 75. And then I had 2 70s Kelly Deluxes, and one of them was a 76. It was sunburst and really beautiful. It was like one of my favorite guitars. And Steve joked with me once. He was like, if you ever think about selling that, let me know. And as the longer that I have gone on the road, and the more years I've spent out there, just the more physically exhausted I've become. So after a while, those guitars with the humbuckers, they're great and they're really meaty, and it feels it's like a piano. You can hit it. It's it's a sturdy instrument. But after a while I was like, I can't sling these things around like I used to. I don't got it like that. So I called Steve and I was like, hey man, I think I'm going to get rid of all of my heavy guitars. Like, do you still want this Tele Deluxe? And he was like, hell yeah, I want it. And so he was like, he's always like playing it on whatever, like Lauryn Hill or Erykah Badu or whatever he's doing when he's not hanging out with me.
That's funny.
And so every once in a while I'll text him. I'm like, how's our bird? So I basically, I condensed all of the, like, I'm sort of a big believer in the idea of, the guitars that I love are all so awesome. Like there are very few things that I keep that that aren't really a great example of whatever guitar it is.
Yep.
And so I felt like I've always felt like if I'm not going to play it that much, then it should go live at somebody else's house where it's going to get a lot of love and attention. And I know some people, it's hard for them to let it go. But for me, I just feel like, if I'm not using it, then it could be somebody else's favorite guitar in the world. And so the last, 5 to 7 years, I've cycled a lot of things through where I'm like, this isn't, this isn't going to stay here. I like it. I have to feel a real connection to it. So I took all those guitars and I turned them into this 66 335.
Nice.
That I really love. And it's really light. And so that's really, that was a real revelation for me, that you could still get the same oomph that you get out of the big, heavy, like Les Pauls or Tele Deluxes, playing some of these lighter guitars that also have humbuckers in them. So I ended up with, I had one 335 back in like a few years ago, and I didn't really love it. And so now I have two that I'm crazy about. This one was like my number one guitar on this tour. It's like an early 70s.
Oh yeah.
But they swapped out the pickups that were in it for like 60s patent number pickups.
Wow.
And it also has the small nut like my 66, the red one does.
Yeah.
And so on this tour, as chance would have it, my main guitar for many years has been, I have a 55 Telecaster.
Wow.
And it's been my main guitar for a long time. And I got it, it was a mess. It needed a bunch of work. Like that neck was twisting, and I needed a refret. It needed a new nut. It had a strip of 12-string tuners on it, and like it was insane. It looked like a maniac had gotten a hold of it. But at the core of it, it was a 55 Telecaster. And all with everything except for those stupid things, everything was original. So I was like, well, this is a great guitar. Like it hasn't been taken care of. So I took this, and Tom Stadler took it, and first he said to me, he was like, "Where did you get this? And can you take it back where you got it?" And I was like, "Unfortunately, no, Tom. I'm going to need you to make this into a guitar." And so anyway, so this guitar has been my number one for a long time, and this year while I was on the road, it started buzzing, and I wasn't traveling with a tech, and I'm not a tech, so I couldn't suss out what was going on, and so I switched to this Walnut 335, and it ended up becoming my main guitar, which was really a fun surprise because I had never really been a 335 person. I always felt like a little kid holding one because they're so big. But all this came about because I started selling my guitars. First, I sold one to Steve. Then I sold a whole bunch of them all over the place.
Wow.
And then I got that 66. And both of these have the same. They have the same pickups, and they have the smaller nut. And at first, I was like, "Oh, am I going to hate this?" But I got used to it. And it feels great now.
Exactly. Where did you buy those guitars? Do you go to a certain place to look at guitars?
Well, so I buy a lot of stuff, and I sell a lot of my stuff when I don't want to keep it anymore through Carter Vintage here in town.
Yeah.
So I'm a big Carter fan. I go there quite regularly. I think they're the only people that send me emails regularly that I always open. And I go through the whole email, and I'm like, do I need any? I'm like scrolling on my phone. I'm like, do I need any of this? And I mean, because you never know. Like my needs have changed. Like they just changed so drastically.
Sure.
From cycle to cycle. Like, I used to have a very elaborate rig where I was splitting my signal and I had 2 amps going. And I used to play slide a lot. I'm not really playing slide very much anymore. So I used to, for a bunch of years, I had a Magnatone stereo Twilighter, like a newish, fairly new one.
Yeah.
And then for some reason, it had gremlins living in it. It just I would get it fixed, and then some other crazy, inexplicable thing. Like we cracked a tube socket one night on the road. And that happens sometimes. They rattle in the cases too much, I guess, and you can crack a tube socket. And I guess maybe real adults take out their tubes at night. I don't know, but we don't do that.
No, they don't.
And so crack the tube socket on the road. And that was a point. I had a tech on the road, and every person in my band there was a number of us that are guitar players. Yeah. We got flashlights. We're all like, what could possibly, everybody took a turn. And then when we got home and I found that I cracked a tube socket, I was like, this thing is possessed. It can't live with me anymore. So I got it fixed, and I sold it on Reverb, and the band who bought it, the road case says my name on it, and so they call the amp Ron Pope because it still has my name on it. But so I had that, and then I got rid of that, and I carried a vintage Magnatone amp in its place, like one from the 50s. But you can't run around the world with an amp that's that old. Whatever. I mean, if you're Derek Trucks, surely you can. But I am not in a position to take that amp and a 60s, deluxe reverb and put those on an airplane. That's not a realistic option for me. And so I've just been kind of, I've gone back and forth with lots and lots of, versions of how I make this noise. Yeah. And that's an exciting part about being a guitar player. If you're not too precious about it, you can try lots of stuff.
Oh yeah.
And you're going to buy a piece of equipment. It's to me is a really fun part. I have an original Klon Centaur. I have one of the gold ones, but I didn't get to that until I bought 7 other things. I got this. I got one of these, the KTR. Yeah. I bought every copy, and I kept going and going and going. And to be fair, I've had mine for many years now, and so they were not $3,000 as embarrassingly expensive as they are now. It was a lot for a pedal, but it wasn't. It wasn't whatever. Sometimes they sell them for $6,000. Like you step on that with your foot. But so but I also, I tried a bunch of stuff before I got to that, and that was really. It was fun. It was a fun journey, and I don't know. I think I'm never too precious about any piece of gear, because, or with the idea of anything. It's if you plug in a brand new amp and it sounds really good, I'm going to be stoked. And now I'm using my ears. If it sounds bad, I'm not going to be excited. But if it sounds good. It feels good. My number one guitar for a long time was this is my stepdad's. I stole it from him, and so it's a Mexican Strat. I put Texas Special pickups in it when I think when I was in high school or the beginning of college, and I played this guitar thousands of nights, many years on the road. I played it in my house. I played it all over the place, and I really liked it, and I still like it. So sometimes, actually, at the moment, I do not keep another Strat. I had a '66, kind of the 3-color Sunburst. I had one of those for a while, and I wasn't playing it, so I was like, all right, you got to go, big guy. And so something like this, it's I have a strong history with it because I've had it since I was a kid. But 2, it's just a good sounding guitar. There's no reason for me not to play this because it wasn't $25,000. So, I didn't have to negotiate, with like a troll under a bridge to get it. Because like I don't know this Walnut 335 as well. So it belonged to Bones Owens, who's a musician here, in Nashville, and I was on Reverb actually, and a guy. I was, messaging back and forth with the guy who was who was selling it, and then he was like, "Oh, and this belonged to Bones Owens." So we have friends in common. So I sent him a message. I was like, "Hey, man, did you really own this guitar? Like, is it cool? Like, what do you think?" and he vouched for it. And so, it's like, this isn't the most valuable guitar in the world. It's not like a collector's item. There's stuff,
sure,
like that is wrong with it, but my tech set it up before I left for tour. And then again in between the European run and the US run, played great every night, never broke a string, never changed a string.
Wow.
Just sounded great. We played whatever. So I did 10 shows, then the strings got changed, and then I did 18 shows.
Wow.
18 shows where I played that thing for like at least half the night. Never broke a string, never changed a string, sounded great every day. So I don't know, like I think of this like, I've got a 6-year-old in my house, and I treat this stuff. It's like my tools, like they're out, and if she wants to pick them up, as long as she's careful, and doesn't break them, that's okay because they're tools, and I love them, and I'm happy to have them, and I'm proud of the stuff that I found. But I don't know. It's like if it feels good, then it is good. Like I went once. I was going to get a brand new Martin. I don't know, like maybe 2008, 2009, something. I don't know, something like that. Maybe 2010. I don't know. And I was going with one of my other closest buddies and most frequent musical collaborators. His name is Paul Hammer.
Okay.
So I was walking with Paul, and we went. This is when I lived in New York, and we went into the Guitar Center at 14th Street, and to go into the new acoustic guitar room, you had to walk through the vintage room.
Okay.
And Paul has a 1955 LG2, Gibson LG2.
Yep.
And we look up on the wall as we're walking, like it's like above the door. We're just about to walk into the new guitar room where I'm going to pick up the guitar that I'm going to buy and go to the front and buy it. And we go in there. He goes, "Look, a 55 LG2, just like mine." So I take it down, and now my friend and I have matching 1955 Gibson LG2s.
That's great.
And so, and it's a fun story. I went with one of my dearest friends, and we happened to bump into this guitar, and I took it down, and it was also at that time they were like giving these things away, so it was like a third of the price of the new guitar I was going to buy, and it was really cool little parlor thing, and I was like, "Oh, this is great! I'm gonna take this," and I have had this thing on the road with me for all these years.
Wow!
Like I take it everywhere, and it's like, and it's an old beat up guitar, so like it gets beat up a little more, and I'm like, it's like. It's not like some pristine, wasn't some pristine collector's item when I bought it.
Yep.
It's an instrument that I use to make music. And, and this is a pretty particular thing because it's not like a D28 or something where you're like, when people imagine acoustic guitar, let's say, they're imagining like a Canon. They're imagining a D28. And this sounds like a little box with strings on it.
Yeah, exactly.
and I love that. It's like, the character of this instrument has informed sometimes how I play. So, it's been on so many songs.
Sure.
Seth took it and played it on the stuff that Carly Pierce just released. He just borrowed this because he was looking for one, and I was like, "Why don't you take mine? Borrow it and see how you feel after you have it." I wasn't going to take it to Europe because I didn't have enough room to carry this one in addition to all the other stuff I had to bring.
Yeah.
And so Seth took it for a few weeks and played it on the Carly Pierce stuff. And so it's like, this guitar is like, it's older than my mom, and it's lived, it's lived a whole bunch. My mom doesn't like it when I say that about any of these things, but it is older than my mom. But, and so it's lived all these lives and done all these things. And that's the thing that sorry, what?
Oh, no, sorry. I interrupted you. What kind of pickup is that you have in it?
This is an LR Bags.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think all the acoustics here pretty much now have LR. Yeah, every acoustic that I have has an LR Bags pickup in it, and then we've been using their DIs a bunch the last few years. They make good stuff. I like what they do there. But yeah, I've cycled through a lot of, in the time that I've owned that acoustic guitar, I've had so many acoustic guitars that have come through. I got a triple O 28, like an early 50s triple O 28 that was Jim Lauderdale's.
Oh, right.
And it was really beautiful. It was so nice. And I brought it home and I played it for a while, and it was, I don't know. I didn't feel like a great connection to it. I like to either have, I really like that little guy, and I really like a big, like a D28, like a, fatter guitar, like the physical, feel of that. And so I had that for a while. I had an old Gibson, like a 1920 Gibson L3, like with the big, the neck shape like that, like a V, like a sharp V, which definitely makes you think about every choice you make while playing guitar, because you're like it's like jumping off of a very high dive. You better be real sure you're going to land it.
Oh yeah.
And that, so I had that for a while. And I was like, this is too hard. Like I can't. I feel like a maniac trying to play this guitar. So I had that, and I had an early 50s D28 for a while, and then Martin sent me a thing from the custom shop like a bunch of years ago. That, again, it was one of those things where it was just like, is a new guitar, and I was like, oh, this sound, like when I want to play this kind of guitar, I want it to sound like this. So I love this. And so it really, all the bigger guitars in my house got sent away because I got this one. So I don't know. I feel like it's fun to be able to mix some of these new things and old things, and I love the things that have a story.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't have got the 66 335 if I hadn't gotten the idea that I should sell all those heavy guitars, because my back hurt.
Exactly.
And like the walnut would have never come in this house if I hadn't talked to Bones and he hadn't been like, oh yeah, it's cool, it's legit, like you should get it. And like the LG2, I happened to be with Paul. I happened to be walking through a store that happened to have an LG. I wasn't looking for one. It found me. And that's a really fun thing about guitars. You can go through a period of your life where you're like, I'm a blank. I'm a Strat person. I'm like for a long time playing. Like I was playing this Telecaster, and I got a new one from Fender that is like a similar sort of a animal. Similar as you can make a new guitar to this monster. And for a long time I was playing Telecasters, like a lot of the simplicity of the thing really appealed to me. And then I moved that season ended, and I moved, now I also play a Telecaster when the situation calls for one. Yeah. But I'm not like surrounded by Telecasters as I was a few years ago. Yeah. And then when this one stopped working, it happened to be the only one that I had. And so I was like, well, I guess we're not playing Telecasters. This is not the season of the Telecaster.
So what are you using for amps right now?
So I have a 66 Deluxe Reverb that I really like. But so that's like, that sounds like, in terms of old stuff floating around, that sounds the most like, this sounds like a guitar to me. Like when you plug a guitar. And in terms of new stuff, I have a Blues Junior that sits next to my desk. Yep. That I've had for a bunch of years. Sure. That I love. Yeah. Because it's got a master volume on it. You can play it low. So I really dig it. I have one of the Tweed Blues Juniors next to my desk. But on this tour, we did something like crazy, sacrilegious. So Zach and I both got the Fractal FM9, the big Fractals, and because we were going to Europe, we needed to be able to whatever we were moving around, we needed to be able to move around ourselves and put behind a van. And it was we were like, man, like, what are we going to do about this? Mm-hmm. And we started, hearing a lot of people in Nashville are using them. And so Justin Minshew, who is my often guitar tech and my good friend, Justin is the headset carpenter in Dierks Bentley's band and works with the guitars there as well. And so everybody there is using fractals. Yeah. And so and they put wedges on the stage so that they move some air. And he was like, I know how serious you are about your gear. You're going to be very impressed with this. So Zach and I each got them months ago, and we were able to fit them in one road case, it's a Pelican. It's a Pelican with wheels, and it weighs exactly 50 pounds. Wow! With both of our both of our fractals. Yeah. And when we went to Europe, we had to take, because we each had a British power supply and a European power supply. We had to take the power. It's exactly 50 with one power supply each, but we couldn't put two power supplies. But in terms of ease of use, it was like we switched out a power supply. You don't need a step down converter. Like, I used to travel with a pedal. I'm going to pick this up. Okay. So this is my regular size pedal board. I've taken some stuff off of it, but just with there's not a tuner on this currently. I was going to say, what am I missing? But this has there's at least two buffers on here. There's one on the top and I think one on the bottom. Uh-huh. There's the Klon, the Flint Strymon. Yeah. This is an old Tube Screamer, the JHS Milkman, and this is an Ibanez 89 that the Robert Keeley people modded, where you step on this guy and hold it down and it creates chaos. Sure. And so I was carrying this. Just this in a case is like 50 pounds. Yeah. With all the stuff, with the cables and whatever. Yeah. And so we in terms of our needs, we're like, well, we need to be able to move all this stuff. We really got lean and mean for this tour. So it was only the four people in the band, Laura, who sells merch, and Kylie, our tour manager. So there's only six of us traveling, and we had to bring a banjo. We use a banjo in the show. We had to have a banjo. We had to have a mandolin. We have a cello. Yeah. And there's one of the people in the band. Her main instrument is cello. Yeah. It's not like we could be like, just play violin all night. It's fine. She's a virtuoso cellist.
Split the difference and bring a viola.
Yeah, right? Yeah. I'm like, can you play a viola like this? Actually, I have lots of fun videos of her playing her violin like it's a cello, because she's a wizard and can do crazy shit like that. Yeah. But so we took the fractals, and it was great. I was like, when someone suggested this to me at first, I looked like I had smelled rotten food. I was like, no. And then, we got them in advance. We didn't commit to using them. We got them a while in advance, and we sat and we worked with them, and we were like, I'll be damned. Like, it really is pretty incredible what they're doing over there. So, and that was another case of me just not being so precious about it. Because I have some Fender amps, like, kind of newish things that I keep with my gear that stays. I have like a set of some equipment that stays in England. Yeah. And so I have amps there, but we were just like, we got to move all this stuff. We're doing it all ourselves. It's going to be a big to do. Yeah. And let's try this. And it really was, we were rewarded. It was really, I was very surprised at the quality of sound that we were able to get out of these things. Because, like, when I was a kid, those things sounded like toys. Anything that had any modeling in it. I remember
the Line 6.
Clay Cook, who's in the Zach Brown band. Clay came in. He's from Atlanta as well, and so he came in to play on my first album with my band. I was in a band called The District, and we were making the record in Atlanta. like Christmas break 2003 going into 2004 is when we were doing that. And so Clay came into play, and he had one of those like Pod Pro, whatever, like the early ones.
Sure.
And we were all kind of like, I mean, I guess maybe, I don't know, like maybe you can get away with this. It kind of, most of this kind of sounds like shit, you know? Like, I mean, we were all poking at it, like something we had never seen. We're like cavemen, like turning the knobs and pressing the buttons. And so at that time, like I said, that's more than 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Most of the stuff that did this was garbage, and then they got better with the pedals. But now the amp stuff is wild. I will say the learning curve on these things is very high. Like it takes a lot of time to learn. Like you could just use it. You could just turn on a preset and a lot of them sound really good. But if you want to make, if you're like, I sound like this on this record, I want to make this sound happen. Yeah. You gotta like figure out, well, I'm playing this amp and I'm using these pedals. And so you find that amp and you adjust it, and you find those pedals and you adjust them. And I honestly, I was flabbergasted, especially with the Klon, because a Klon Centaur is a pretty specific sounding beast. And I guess increasingly now, in the last few years, the copies of that circuit have gotten so good that a lot of people are making good copies. But 10 plus years ago, when I was first interested in this, there weren't like very good copies. There were pretty good copies. Sure. And so it was interesting to open up this box and find that if the model of a Klon that they have in there, or whatever you call it, whatever the Klon that lives in the box, felt just like mine and reacted with this fake amp that's out there in space, reacted in the same way. And so that was really fun and really surprising for us. Zach was like, I wonder if I'll ever plug in another amp. Yeah. I mean, especially, something like this, this gig was really, we went to, I don't know how many countries I'd have to count, but we went to Sweden, and we went to Holland, and we went to the UK, and we had to go to Ireland to get and start there, and it, on and on and on and on and on. Germany, and then we came home and went through America. And so it's not like we had 3 gigs on a weekend where you're like, it's fine. Whatever, I can carry the Super up the stairs for 3 days. Yeah. You're like on day 50 of this journey. And I used to carry around in New York City. I had a Super in my room that I would bring to club gigs. Wow. And I would stick that crazy heavy, no road case. Like I get on the subway.
Oh my God. with a
Les Paul in this hand, a pedal board on my back, and a Super in this hand, and I would ride the New York subway.
That's insane.
Those amps are like 75 pounds or something. Like, carry it by the handle, walking up the stairs, walking to the bitter end or some small club in New York City with this crazy screaming loud amp. And it weighed like at that point probably half as much as I did. Yeah. And now, so I don't know. I as much as of a snob as I can be about certain elements of guitar and have been, I try to I try to be open to stuff, because honestly, it's like, I don't know, man. Like it's constantly changing, and it's like if you're not open to it, you could poo-poo something that you could find joy on or find inspiration on. Sure. And I have found increasingly there are a lot of parts about getting older as a musician that are a bitch, and I hate them. Yeah. But one part that I really like is that increasingly I meet young musicians that are like, oh, I heard you do this and I wanted to learn to do it. I heard you play on this song, or I heard, it's funny to me when people say this about my piano playing, because I play piano like a 7-year-old. I am like, it's like I learned to play in the Jackson Browne school of piano. It's like I can accompany myself. It sounds like me playing, definitely. But I'm not like a really competent piano player. But I grew up playing guitar. I'm a guitar player first, and so it is fun when you meet, now they're like people in their 20s generally. They're like, oh, when I was a teenager, I heard you do such and such, and it made me want to do it. Or like, I saw you playing such and such a guitar, and I was like, oh, what's that? Like kids who had never seen a Tele Deluxe. I was playing Tele Deluxes for such a long time, and they were like, that's a Telecaster with humbuckers in it. Like, what do you got there? And so that's something. We were talking about this on the road. We were listening to records. We were all talking about records we loved in the 90s and in the early 2000s. And then we would sometimes, we would jump back to records we loved from before as well. And we were talking about different records that informed how we play. And so we were going back and forth and, playing each other's stuff. And I played the Albert King record from Stax, where he's playing with Booker T and the MGs. Mm-hmm. And so when that's in stereo, and you're looking right ahead, like Albert's guitar is over here, and Cropper is over here. Yep. And so as a I don't know, like whenever, I don't know even how old I was when I was doing this, but I learned all those guitar parts because I just was obsessed. Because it's like for guitar players, it's the best thing that there is. It's Steve Cropper on this side of your head and Albert King on this side of your head, and it's got, there's the number of the best songs that Albert ever recorded, and he's singing great, and it's Booker T and the MGs. It's like it's the best thing. Yeah. And so I learned from those records, like not just about guitar playing, because obviously you learn those parts. It's it's one thing to learn the parts. It's also like Steve's this guitar over here. His relationship to, like, sometimes he's stops playing his riff, and for a moment he's playing in unison or in harmony with Duck's bass. Yeah. And other times he drops out of what he's doing and he plays as part of the horn section. And the piano does this as well. Yeah. And it's like, as a guitar player, when you're learning that, you're like, oh, I gotta listen, like, because Cropper's listening. He's like playing these things that relate to the vocals happening here, and sometimes he's reacting to the vocal, but he can't respond to the vocal because Albert King is gonna, he's gonna play some kind of. There's gonna be a response already, so you can't, like, the most natural thing to do in a blues tune is to play those responses. Well, you can't do that. Yeah. So that's already happening. So how do I find my place in here? And I think about that sort of thing, and I use my ears in that way when I make every record. Everywhere that I'm playing guitar, I'm listening. Sure. All, like, on a swivel, because that's where you find, parts that you can emphasize or that everybody can pass around, or like we made a mistake in the studio. There's this song called "Nobody's Gonna Make It Out Alive" on this newest album, and the riff is like, I'm playing. It's a very straightforward, just a G to D back and forth, and I wrote this little straight ahead riff in my house, and in the studio, the first time we showed it to somebody, maybe Billy Contreras, who's playing fiddle, somebody came in late, so the first part's like na 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 na, and so you hear like na na na, and then na na na, like coming right behind us, and it's like it's almost like we're playing it in a round all of a sudden, and we were like, that's rad. Cool, yeah. Like we weren't like, because we were listening and we were trying to play with each other. No, we weren't like, no, that's not how it goes. We were like, oh, that's how it goes, man. and that's, I don't know, like, I love playing guitar, and I love to get to share with people my enthusiasm for guitar. Like, it's my trade, there's so much stuff in the music business you can't control. Like, the commercial aspects of this, you can't control. Like, you can't control if people buy the record, if people stream the record. You can't control what the press says about the record. Yeah. A lot of that stuff you can't control. But my practice is my own. And then I get to go out into the world. And I think especially for someone like me, I am mostly known to the world as a songwriter. And so people don't know. And then they walk in and they're like, oh, this motherfucker's not kidding. Like, this is a grown ass guitar player. Yeah. And that's a fun thing that I get to do all the time. Like, when I was younger and much cuter, a lot of the audience were young women, as happens when you're young making music. and they would bring their boyfriends. You know, you'd see them in there with their arms crossed, all angry because they're like, because their girlfriend liked the ballad. But then they would see the show and they're like, oh, this is like a proper rock band. Like here, I'm at a real thing, and that's something I really love getting to do. I love to get to play guitar, and to find a way to make it integrated into the show in such a way that it makes sense to people, where I'm not doing, like, I'm not on some kind of like instrument, like I'm not trying to play Always With Me, Always With You, and like, you know, have a 7-minute like Satriani tribute in my show, because I know that people don't come to me for that, but I can sprinkle my guitar throughout the show. So, you know, there's a guitar solo here, there's an intro here, I'm playing a flat picking solo here, you know, like, so that it's integrated into the show, so that I can both share what I love so much with the audience, while also, you know, pay tribute to the things that led me here. Yeah, exactly. Like I always talk about this, like there's that Wilson Pickett recording of Hey Jude that he did in Muscle Shoals, and that's like, I mean, it's everything that I love about American music all put together. There's a great singer, there's a great song. I mean, it is a British band song, but it's a great song sung by an incredible singer with monster backing musicians. Dwayne Allman is playing that recording, and it's everything that I want out of music. Sure. And so, but that is an example of someone who, I don't know if you would have if somebody said to you a week before that session, "Oh, Wilson Pickett's going to cut Hey Jude," you'd be like, "Land of a Thousand Dances, he's going to cut Hey Jude, and it's going to be cool." And you're like, "Oh, it's going to be the coolest recording you've ever heard." And music is, it's fun. Like that's what's, I love that part. Like, you know, we all sign up as kids because we want to play. We want to play music. We love to play. And then if you get to a certain level of proficiency, or you get to a certain age, people are like, "What are you doing with this?" And it's like, you have to contend with the commercial part, the professional part. And I am, especially because I've been on the road for so much of my life, I always try to remember that what we get to do every night is play music. Like, I would give up, at this point in my life, every other part of going on the road. Like, it's you know, I mean, everybody who's, you know, I'm sure basically everyone who listens to this and pays attention to this is a guitar player. But you know, it's like you go on the road. It's not like being on vacation. Like, you know, you got to wake up and schlep someplace, and, you know, you got to stay, you know, play a show, and you got to drive to someplace, or you're sleeping away from home. You're missing your family and all that. I got a little girl. Like, I want to be home. Sure. But for 90 minutes or 2 hours every night, I get to get on stage with my friends and play. And it's like, I'm 41 years old. I have no business playing, but I'm out there, you know, trying shit, like having, like, every once in a while, one of us, me, you know, like I'm standing, my best friend in the world is standing to my left-hand side playing bass. And every once in a while I'll try something and I won't land it. And I'll look at him and he's like, and that's, you know, that's fun. It's, and that's a beautiful thing about music. I think, I don't know, like, it's easy to get caught up in lots of parts of this that don't matter. Like, I don't, like, you could show up, you know, with a whatever, like a $400,000 burst that, you know, cause you're a, you know, investment banker and you're rich, and plug it into a Dumble that you just got for $200,000. And, you know, if it doesn't feel good, it's not going to, like, I'm not going to be excited. Like, you can have all the shit in the world. You can have all the equipment, and you can have all the chops in the world. It's like, you got to have taste and understanding. You have to be entertaining. And when all those things happen, it's a miracle. It feels like, you know, like you get the excitement that comes with the discovery part. Like, I bumped into Dan Vickery, who's one of the guitar players in Counting Crows. I was in New York, and this is like maybe 20 years ago. I was teaching guitar lessons in New York, so maybe 18, 20 years ago. I was teaching guitar lessons, and I had a soft case on my back. I was going to teach lessons, and I saw Dan in the street, and I was like, man, I'm going to teach guitar lessons right now to kids. And one of the guitar players I loved, I was a kid in the 90s. They were one of the best bands. I like at the time. For me, I loved them.
Oh, of course.
And because I loved the band. And so those guys are also disciples of the band. There's the big organ. There's lovely harmonies. It's great songwriting. They're all good ensemble players. And so I loved everything about that band, basically. So I saw Dan in the street, and I walked up to him, and I was like, I hate to bother you so much. Like, I would kick myself if I didn't say, I'm a guitar player, and you're one of the people I heard as a kid that made me like understand that I didn't just want to play like Hendrix or play like Albert King. I also wanted to learn like ensemble playing and play as a part of a unit. And you're playing like, I know your parts. I can hear your guitar. I know more than I could, like the same way I could pick you out, seeing you on the street, I can hear when it's your guitar. Like I know you. Yeah. And he was like, no person has ever recognized me when I am not standing next to Adam or at a gig. Yeah. And he was like, this is the coolest thing. And they were already, this is the 2000s. Like they'd been an amphitheater band for at least 10 years, probably more. And like he was in a big famous band, and we talked about guitars like until I had to leave to run to go teach my lesson. I was like, this is awesome. Like what a cool thing. And that's another part about being a guitar player is, it's a kind of a neat fraternity to be a part of. My friend Charlie, he lives across the street from me. He's an accountant by trade, but he's a guitar player. He plays guitar. And so we were standing outside talking about guitars last night, and he's like, he plays every day. He like still takes lessons as a grown up. He's like into it. He means business. Sure. And I was like, what a cool thing it is. We're two adults, like, and this is a thing that we get to share that we both like, we probably were like little kids and we were stoked about, and we're like, how do you do that? And now I'm a grown man and I'm standing here like, he's an accountant, like, but he, he's a guitar player. And so we have that, it's a thing in common. Right. And so what made you, I mean, I don't know if I'm allowed to ask questions. It's your podcast, but what made you excited about guitar? Like when you were starting?
Oh God! Well, I'm much older than you. My dad was always had like the Buck Owens show on. Cool. Buck Owens has before he had his own show, so he'd have that stuff on, and I'd see Don Rich and the sparkly guitars and all that stuff. Yeah. And so all that, and then you get like I'm of the era of the Sears catalog or the Montgomery Ward's catalog would come, and you finger through those catalogs and see all the guitars and stuff. Yeah. Oh,
that's cool. Yeah. I mean, and they're so beautiful. Like that's another cool part. You get excited about how lovely they are. I'm sorry, keep going.
No, that's fine. It's true. They're gorgeous. I mean, they're sexy. It's
Yeah. We did a tour once in Europe where the bus driver's name was Moose, and Moose was a collector and had an enormous collection of guitars. And so we would sit sometimes and just talk about his guitars because he was really into fingerstyle playing and had a ton of guitars, for that stuff. But he had one time he was driving Clapton. Wow. And Clapton gave Buddy Guy. Clapton invited Buddy Guy to come out. So Buddy Guy's on the bus with them. Like Buddy Guy just gets on Clapton's bus and is traveling with them. And so he said, I guess Buddy gave him a neck. Wow. And so Clapton, not to be outdone, gave him a body and a set of pickups. So he had a guitar that it was, part a gift from Buddy Guy and part a gift from Eric Clapton.
That's fantastic.
And like, this is a guy, obviously he is involved in rock and roll and he drives a tour bus, but you don't imagine you're going to meet a tour bus driver who has a guitar, who can really play guitar. Yeah. And he's like, he has a guitar that he was gifted by Eric Clapton and Buddy Guy. And it's like, it's the fraternity of guitar. And it makes it so whether someone is, it doesn't matter your gender, your age, your where you come from, your color, like none of that shit. It's like if you know about guitars and you're enthusiastic about guitars and you play guitar, you can talk, just talk about guitars with guitar players, and you can play guitar, and it's this whole, it's a language that it crosses all kinds of boundaries. I did an interview earlier this year. I was talking about once I was at an event and Jason Isbell and I are sitting backstage, and we're like, close talking. We're like, the two of us are off. And I was like, if people like, we're both like these songwriters that have written these like, emotional songs that people care about. If people heard us talking, we're just talking about gear.
Yeah,
we're only talking about gear. This is before he got that burst, and we were talking about like how expensive bursts had gotten.
Sure.
And how like only collectors could have them, and nobody had them. And so and then he got one. I was like, good for you, wow.
Yeah.
But like, if you're not a guitar player, you're like, these two songwriters are sitting together, and they're talking about Les Pauls right now, and like did you replace the nut on that Telecaster, or is it original?
Sure.
And it's like that's I don't know, that's like a neat part about being in the fraternity of guitar players. And like, you can meet people who they make something so fundamentally different from you. They can be like, you can love like Cropper, and they could love like Mark Tremonti from Creed, like their favorite. They could have learned those riffs, and like those riffs are epic. Like you could now that like for me, I wasn't like there was never a point where I put on that, like I never bought one of those records, but I can understand how as a guitar player you could hear that and be like,
oh yeah,
like my experience falling in love with like different records, it does not invalidate your experience of falling in love with records. And that's, I think, another thing that's is pretty rad about music. There's so many ways you can come to it. And like, you think about like Nile Rodgers, let's say, like Nile Rodgers, I think a lot of people would imagine that the kind of music that Nile Rodgers has been involved in making would probably not be so hard for guitar players. But that kind of guitar playing is incredibly intricate and difficult. Yeah. And I was obsessed with that stuff. And not like whatever, like not like Corey Wong level obsessed with it, where I like can do it better than it exists on records, like not like that. But I was really into it, and I learned, that stuff in like James Brown's band and stuff, where it's like not like the showy offy, like a lot of us, you hear like a screaming, whatever Stevie Ray Vaughan solo, you're like, ooh, I want to do that. But, that like Nile Rodgers stuff and like those sorts of things, it's like a whole other world that you can go into. Guitar is like, it's sort of infinite. You can learn forever. I mean, I've been a professional musician like pretty much all of my adult life now, and I am always learning new things, and I'm always unlocking something. I'm always trying. I'm switching. Like I switched in the last few years to these. I use blue chip picks now. Have you seen these?
Sure. Yep.
So yeah. So I switched to this. Well, yeah. They're. I bought. So as an experiment, when I decided I would start using these, I bought one. And I was like, all right, but I'm not gonna post online about these. I'm not gonna ask the guy for any. I'm gonna start by buying one. They're like, I think they're like $35. And because Seth, when I was learning to flat pick, Seth was like, I play these, most people do. So I bought one, and I didn't lose it for 1 year.
Wow.
I like. You know what it's like to hold onto a guitar pick for a year? I used to throw 25 guitar picks into the crowd. You can't throw these because you'll kill somebody, first of all, but they're also $35. But they're, I switched to this and as an experiment, because I was like, okay, if the best flat pickers are using this, maybe there's something to it, and I'm not like a chemist or an engineer. I don't know what they make this out of or why this feels so good, but I really love it. And so that's something that like I was playing picks that were way. I mean, everybody plays picks that are way softer than this. So I was playing picks that were way softer than that forever, basically. Sure. And so that was like a revelation that I made, in like my mid to late 30s. That was, and I I've always. I used to switch from like playing with a pick in my hand. Like when I was hybrid picking, I often would tuck a pick in my fingers, play with my fingers,
Sure.
like Hubert Sumlin play with all my fingers, kind of style. I mean, not to say I was playing like Hubert Sumlin, but I was trying.
Yeah.
You know, when I'd switch, I used my fingers. Side note, I saw him when I was in college. He was playing, or right after college or whatever. I saw him playing at the Blue Note in New York. I didn't go in because I didn't have money, but I saw him on the street. And I asked him about not playing with a pick, and he held up his hand, and he said, I got 5 fingers. You got one pick. You got one pick. You got one pick. I got 5 fingers. And I was like, smart. I get it. And so anyway, so I would try to play like that, you know, because he was so rad. And so I learned. I mean, he didn't use a pick at all, obviously. But I would switch from when I, you know, needed a pick, I would tuck it in my fingers, and then, you know, and then use my fingers, and then go back to my pick. And then at some point, I also started doing more hybrid picking, where I was using the pick and these fingers, and that's like, you know, stuff that different. Again, it's like seasons of your life. You know, it's different seasons or different. You know, and I'm in a unique position because I'm not playing for other people at all anymore. Like I haven't been for a very long time, so I'm only playing for myself, and so I only have to sound like in what's my vision of how I sound.
Yep.
And so I'm always trying stuff, like even something as simple as like, how often am I using a pick? How often am I using all my fingers? Am I hybrid picking? And like, you know, in my regular playing, there's a lot of alternating between those things. Like I have a song called "Let's Get Stoned" from my Work album, maybe. And so, yeah, it is. It's on Work. And so, anyways, the song's called "Let's Get Stoned," and the riff, the hybrid pick by using the pick and my fingers, like all together. And then like there's a breakdown in the middle that I play with my fingers. Like I tuck the pick, I play with my fingers, and then I play the solo with the pick. And I realized that at some point I was like, wow, like it's such an interesting thing, because I didn't think about it. It wasn't like that wasn't like a technique thing. It was like a comfort thing. Yeah. And then so once I realized I was doing that, I was like, what happens if I don't? Like what happens if I do it like one night I do it all with the hybrid picking. One night I play the whole thing with my fingers, and like the riff doesn't feel right without a flat pick. And then I was like, well, how can I make it feel right? Like Jeff Beck didn't use a pick. He sounded like he was playing with a pick all the time. Yeah. And so I don't know. It's like, I just, you know, when it becomes your job, I think you can lose some of the magic. Oh yeah. And what I love, I love to play guitar, and I love to figure stuff out and find something that feels good to me. And you know, on the longer you play, it's like to unlock, to feel like you are 0.5% better is so. When you're a kid and you pick up the guitar, you can get 100% better in a week. Sometimes you find a new thing, you unlock whatever, you're like, oh, I get this now, and then all of a sudden you're head and shoulders better, and people are like, oh my God, what happened to you? Yeah. And the farther you go, the harder that is. But I still feel so excited about all that. Unlocking it and taking it apart and finding something new, like for me, and then you take it out into the world and you get to share it with other people. And then maybe, you know, like maybe some other person, like a young guitar player was like, can I have one of your picks? And I was like, let me tell you a story about why I'm not going to give you this pick. Like, I was like, and I would suggest you go buy one of these. I would rather give you $35. And like, I have 6 of these on a world tour. And so no, you can't. Like I played the 48. I have 150 that I ended up with somehow. That's like my, in case of emergency, break glass. Like I have one more pick because, you know, like it's hard to hold on to picks. Sure. This, I forget, was it Jed Hughes? I messaged somebody on this tour because they were like, I'm down to 3 picks. And I was like, yeah, with a picture of the blue chips, I was like, yeah, I got 2 left. We're not going to make it home.
Hey, Ron, it's been great talking to you. I should let you go.
Dude,
We've spent a lot of time on the phone here.
Oh, dude, so much fun. Thank you so much. I love to talk about guitars, and I really appreciate it. I hope we see you at some point when we're out on the road.
Yeah. Well, I'm in Northern California, so I'll be watching for you.
Well, all right, bud. Appreciate you. Have a good day.
Likewise. Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to Have Guitar Will Travel. You can catch up on all the things I'm doing at thedeadlies.com, and I'm on all the social media platforms as well. And please support Vintage Guitar and all the wonderful things they do, because they do many, many wonderful things for us guitar players. Thanks. Please subscribe. Please tell a friend, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye, guys.